So you got me thinking out a really interesting line of questioning here. Showing the value over time, having dramatic results, dramatic impact. And then I'm coupling that. So I'm going off the reservation here a little bit. This isn't something we've talked about before. We talked about your internal customers and understanding them. This feels like the business management course that you went through, like marketing 101, like understanding your customers. And then at the same time, a part of marketing 101 is you have to have a campaign with those customers. You have to be constantly communicating with them. And guess what? You got to prove that what you're doing actually works, that impact, those results, share it over time. So, what do we do? Typically, as marketers, we'll put together case studies, testimonials like, here, this is what's happening. It's not just, I hear it in the hallways or that person worked out. It feels like it's doing some good stuff. How important is it for you to make the case internally, prove it, put together the materials, and be like, this is why we do this kind of stuff?
It's important. It's important for many reasons. If you're trying to prove that it's the right decision and the right approach, if you're trying to show that it actually worked and it's something we should replicate. We were really fortunate. Our CEO, when COVID hit and everyone was remote, and people started to bring people back in the office because they felt like they couldn't tell if people were being productive or not, or there was this misconception that because people were working from home, they weren't productive. And he said, let's challenge that and let's come up with dashboards and KPIs for every single position, every single department within the company, so that we can see how productive our employees are being and we can evaluate them in that way. So there's this discipline already internally of being able to see how people are performing. And we've seen that we have higher retention, we have higher performance, we have higher satisfaction scores and employee experience scores when we hire people for the right mindset and maybe some of those adjacent skill sets. We've seen that, and we're fortunate because we had that project where we built out our internal dashboards, which is something that I know he and the team were really proud of, that because it helps us figure out, is it the right way? I might think it's the right way, but if we can't see the results, then maybe it's not. So that helped us a lot. And when you see things, especially in things like sales, you can see the numbers and you can see hitting your numbers and you can see the curves when people are joining. And before, when the curve was flat, building pipeline or making their sales. And now the curve goes up so dramatically. It's really been awesome to see that on paper. You can't argue with those results.
I love it. We have this mentality in the business world of prove it to me. This is the business. I might make emotional decisions somewhere else in my life, snap decisions, but in business, at least the expectation is we think about things rationally, even though we know that's not true. But prove it to me is a really good thing. And creating those dashboards and those KPIs is brilliant.
I agree. And I want to say one thing about that, something that I took away from my program, as well as something that I see every day. And that is that as HR leaders, there sometimes is one way to solve a problem, but oftentimes there's so many different ways to solve a problem. And I think as HR leaders, we think, what's the best way? What's the right way? But one thing I took away was when we were given these case studies and we're in a table of 5 or 6 people and we go around the table and we say, what would you do next? How would you handle it? Every single person had a different approach. And it doesn't mean one was right and one was wrong. They had pros and cons and there was different contexts for why they would do it. But as long as you're seeing the results, that's most important. But there are a lot of different ways to get to the same outcome sometimes. So the results are what matter most. And then if we're rowing along together and we're on the same team, that's how we can build that trust and build that understanding that as HRs, we're more than being administrative. We're thought partners and we're strategic advisors as well. So I think that's something that was really important to me that I took away when I'm faced with a new problem. And I think, well, how do we solve this? This is new. Knowing that there's a lot of different ways, and let's figure it out together and let's break this down. Let's figure out where we're trying to go and come up with what makes sense for us as a company, given the context and the stage we're in right now. So that's something that's helped me a lot. I think about that a lot.